If you were born before 1955, I need you to do something that might feel uncomfortable for a second. I want you to pull up your bank app or look at your last paper statement and stare at the exact dollar amount the Social Security Administration sent you this month. Look at it closely, because there is a statistically staggering chance that the number you are looking at is wrong. Not off by a couple of dollars, not a minor rounding error. I am talking about hundreds of dollars every single month, thousands of dollars a year that belong to you but are currently sitting trapped inside a flawed government calculation. And here is the coldest part of that reality. Nobody from the Social Security Administration is ever going to pick up the phone, call your house, and tell you that they made a mistake. That is not how the machinery works. The system prints a number, the system deposits the number, and if you accept that number without questioning it, your hard-earned money quietly evaporates into the federal ledger forever. Today, I am going to show you the hidden gears behind why this happens, how to audit your own life history to find out if you are being shortchanged, and the exact uncompromising steps you must take to force them to fix it before another month slips away. Hang with me until the very end, because the final step is the one that 99% of retirees completely skip. Yet it is the only trigger that actually forces the government to transfer that missing money directly into your checking account. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, hit that button right now and turn on the notification bell.
Nice.
Federal benefit regulations, calculation algorithms, and retroactive appeal processes shift under our feet every single year. When those shifts happen, the state does not send out a personal guide to explain what it means for your pocketbook. That is what we do here. Let's get straight to the truth. To understand how deep this rabbit hole goes, you have to look at what happened to a retired mechanic from Tucson named Harold. For 9 straight years, Harold watched exactly $1,412 land in his account every month. He never questioned it. Why would he? He assumed the algorithms were flawless and that the government knew his history better than he did. Then, on a random Tuesday afternoon, his daughter, who happens to be an accountant, sat down at his kitchen table and logged into his online Social Security portal. It took her less than 4 minutes to spot the disaster. Tucked deep inside his lifetime earnings history, 3 specific years in the mid-1980s were marked as zero, absolute zeros. Harold had been on the shop floor grease-stained and working 50 hours a week during those exact years, but the system recorded it as if he didn't exist. Luckily, Harold was an old-school guy who kept his W-2 forms in a battered shoebox in the back of his closet. They filed an official correction. The administration verified the blunder, and just like that, Harold's monthly check jumped by over $100 every month, accompanied by a massive retroactive lump sum check for the years he was underpaid. Harold's story isn't some bizarre one-in-a-million anomaly. It is happening right now to people on your block, and the only reason the mistake survives is because nobody is looking. Let's strip down the math so you can see exactly where your money might be hiding. The bedrock of your entire retirement benefit rests on a single number pulled from your highest 35 years of indexed earnings. The government takes those 35 years, adjusts them against the historical curve of inflation, averages them out, and feeds them into a complex formula to establish what they call your primary insurance amount. That is the holy grail number that dictates your lifestyle. But think about the vulnerability in that design. Every single digit in that calculation relies on employer reporting systems stretching back to the 1970s, the 1960s, and the dawn of computer tracking. The Social Security Administration itself openly admitted to making roughly $2.5 billion in pure underpayments in a single recent year. Independent data shows that nearly half of all earnings record mismatches within the federal system are never corrected simply because the victims die or grow old without ever realizing they were robbed. Think about it this way. If just one single year of your working life is missing or miscalculated, your baseline benefit is permanently crippled. If you have 2 or 3 missing years, the damage compounds exponentially. Financial analysts have proved that having just 5 missing years of earnings data can slash a senior's monthly check by more than $150. Over a standard 20-year retirement, that is $36,000 left on the table. It didn't happen because you lazy loaded your career. It happened because an understaffed agency made a data entry error decades ago, and you never forced them to open the file. Now, let's layer on an even more frustrating reality. Because if your birth certificate says you were born between 1943 and 1954, you are caught in a very specific, quiet calculation trap that has cost millions of Americans a massive chunk of their promised safety net. It all boils down to an arbitrary timeline that most people never fully understood when they signed the paperwork. For everyone born in that specific window, your official full retirement age is exactly 66 years old. Not 65, not 67, 66. That is the exact milestone where you are legally entitled to 100% of the money you earned over a lifetime of sweat. But the system dangling the carrot also opened a trap door. They allowed people to claim benefits as early as age 62. And millions of Americans facing health scares, corporate layoffs, or pure exhaustion took the bait. What the brochures failed to make crystal clear is that claiming early doesn't just mean smaller checks for a little while until you turn older. It means a permanent, irreversible haircut for the rest of your natural life. If you filed at 62 with a full retirement age of 66, your monthly income was slashed by a brutal 25% forever. If your rightful benefit was supposed to be $2,000 a month, you signed away $500 every single month, money you will never see again, no matter how high inflation spikes or how long you live. I remember reading a heartbreaking post in a retirement forum from a woman in Columbus named Dorothy. She had been collecting her checks for 7 years when she finally realized her income was 25% lower than her true full benefit because she filed early. She wrote that when she walked into that sterile local Social Security office at age 62, nobody sat her down, looked her in the eye, and said, "Dorothy, this single signature is going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars over the next 2 decades. They just handed her a clipboard, showed her a number, and pointed to the dotted line. She said she wished someone had just explained it to her like a real friend over a cup of coffee. Her regret is echoed in senior centers across this country every day, and it has a very specific, devastating shape for people in her exact age bracket. But let me be entirely direct with you. If you already claimed early and you are locked into that lower tier, I am not telling you this to make you feel defeated or full of regret. I am telling you this because even if you made the early election, there may still be a second stream of money you are being cheated out of for reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with the age you retired. Because here's the secret most retirees don't know. Even if you did everything perfectly, even if you waited until exactly age 66 to file, the check hitting your account today can still be completely wrong if the underlying historical earnings record feeding that calculation is corrupted. And that is the part we can actually fix. That is the part where the administration is legally obligated to cut you a check if you show up with the evidence. So I want you to grab a pen and paper right now because this is the exact operational playbook to reclaim what is yours. Step 1 is non-negotiable. You need to go to ssa.gov and log into your personal My Social Security account. If you've never set one up, it takes less than 10 minutes to verify your identity. Once you are past the dashboard, you need to look specifically for your comprehensive earnings history report. This is a line-by-line, year-by-year autopsy of every single dollar ever reported to the government under your Social Security number since you were a teenager. Do not skim this. Read it like an investigator. You are hunting for 3 specific red flags. Any year that shows an absolute zero when you know you were employed. Any year where the listed income looks drastically lower than what you remember making, or any weird, unexplained gaps in your timeline. If you spot even one discrepancy, you have just located the leak where your money is draining out. Step 2 is collecting your armor. You need documentation. Dig through your files, your basement, or your old tax records for W-2 forms, old tax returns, or final pay stubs corresponding to those corrupted years. Now, do not panic if you don't possess pristine paperwork from 1982. Gather whatever you can find. Even a single piece of credible employer documentation can be the crowbar that forces the agency to launch an internal investigation. Step 3 is triggering the bureaucracy. You need to download and execute Form SSA 7008. That is the official request for correction of earnings record. It is a straightforward document available right on their website. Fill it out completely, attach your supporting evidence, and submit it. If you prefer to look someone in the eyes, call their main hotline at 1-800-772-1213 to force open an official earnings record review, or load your paperwork into a folder and walk directly into your local field office. Once that request is stamped into their system, the agency is forced to audit your file against their master databases. The correction timeline usually grinds through the gears between 10 and 90 days. And if they find that they owe you, they don't just adjust your future checks. They calculate the historical shortfall and drop it into your bank account as a massive lump sum retroactive direct deposit. But you need to understand that the clock is ticking against you. While the administration has the internal authority to rectify screamingly obvious errors whenever they find them, there is a strict federal guideline stating that earnings records are only easily and cleanly correctable within a window of 3 years, 3 months, and 15 days from the close of the tax year in which the money was earned. The older the error, the heavier the burden of proof falls squarely on your shoulders. This isn't a reason to throw your hands up in despair. It is a reason to treat this like an absolute emergency. If Harold in Tucson had let that shoebox sit in his dark closet for another 5 years, those 1980s earnings would have been permanently locked behind federal red tape, unrecoverable for the rest of his life. And we cannot forget the people who went the extra mile and delayed their retirement. If you were born between 1943 and 1954, and you had the discipline to delay your retirement claim beyond your full retirement age of 66, the law dictates that the government must reward you with a crushing 8% increase in your benefit for every single year you waited, all the way up to age 70. That means if you held out the whole way, your check should be a staggering 32% larger than your baseline benefit. But you must verify that those delayed retirement credits were actually coded into your file correctly when you finally cross the finish line. Systemic omissions on delayed credits are quiet, devastating errors that slip through the cracks all the time. When you log into your portal, audit the math. If the numbers don't square with the promises made to you, it is time to demand an explanation. If you think the system is too automated to make mistakes on this scale, look at what was exposed in a damning government oversight report. Federal investigators confirmed that thousands of widows and widowers across the country were actively being underpaid due to a catastrophic internal calculation glitch involving the widow's indexing computation. These grieving spouses didn't fill out the wrong forms, they didn't lie, they didn't miss deadlines. The math inside the government's own legacy software failed during a manual processing step, and the Inspector General estimated that an unbelievable 40% of surviving spouses reviewed in that batch were actively getting shortchanged. 40%. That isn't a statistical anomaly or a minor slip-up. That is a systemic structural failure that the state quietly tolerates behind closed doors while remaining completely silent to the public. This is the core truth I want to burn into your mind long after this video fades to black. The people working at the Social Security Administration are not your enemies. The vast majority of them are overworked civil servants drowning in a tidal wave of files. But the apparatus they manage is an absolute dinosaur. It is an unimaginably massive, bloated machine built on decades of crumbling paper records, archaic code, and human data entry. And the cold, hard reality of adulthood is that giant systems make giant mistakes that cost regular people real survival money. The moral burden of catching those mistakes does not rest on the government. It rests entirely on you. If you were born before 1955, your legacy was supposed to be protected by 35 years of pristine math. Before you close this tab or watch another video, open a new window, go to ssa.gov, log into your account, and demand to see your history. Look at every single year. If a number looks wrong, trust your gut, because it probably is. Fill out Form SSA 7008 or pick up the phone and call 1-800-77-21213. Do not let them keep what you earned. Take 10 seconds right now to send this video to one person you love who was born before 1955 and relies on their monthly check. Just one share could be the reason a missing year is found, putting thousands of dollars back into their household permanently. That is why we build this content. I will see you in the next one.